Emma was an ordinary woman living an ordinary life, but something strange began to happen. It started innocently enough, a few restless nights, a faint memory of wandering the house, but soon her sleepwalking took a darker turn. One night Emma woke up, not in her bed, but in the middle of her kitchen. The knife drawer was open, and a single blade gleamed under the moonlight. She had no memory of how she got there. The next night, Emma woke up at the top of the staircase, her hand gripping the banister tightly. One wrong step and she could have tumbled down. She felt as if something, or someone, had led her there. Then came the basement. Emma awoke to the sound of dripping water, surrounded by cobwebs and rusted tools. The door above her creaked shut, leaving her in complete darkness. One night, Emma woke up not in her home, but in the middle of a dense forest. The trees loomed tall and twisted, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for her. She could hear whispers in the wind. Emma found herself standing in front of an abandoned house. The windows were shattered and the door hung loosely on its hinges. She didn't know how she got there, but she felt compelled to go inside. Inside the house, the floorboards creaked with every step. The walls were lined with faded photographs of people she didn't recognize. Their eyes seemed to follow her as she walked. Emma stopped in front of an old cracked mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, but something was wrong. The reflection smiled, a smile she didn't make. Emma woke up in the attic, surrounded by old dolls with cracked faces and missing eyes. They seemed to turn their heads as she moved, their hollow eyes following her every step. One night, Emma woke up in a graveyard. The tombstones were old and weathered, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. She could hear faint whispers coming from the ground beneath her feet. Emma found herself standing in front of an old abandoned church. The doors were slightly ajar, and a faint light flickered from within. She felt an irresistible pull to enter. Inside the church, Emma stood before an ancient altar. Candles flickered around her, and the air was thick with the scent of incense. She felt as if she was being watched. Emma woke up in a crypt, surrounded by stone coffins. The air was cold and damp, and she could hear faint scratching sounds coming from inside the coffins. Emma found herself standing on the edge of a dark abyss. The ground beneath her feet crumbled, and she felt an invisible force pulling her closer to the edge. Emma woke up in her bed, drenched in sweat. She thought it was all a nightmare, until she noticed the dirt on her feet and the faint smell of decay in the air. Emma looked in the mirror and saw her reflection once again. This time, it didn't smile. It simply stared back at her with hollow, empty eyes. As Emma lay in bed, the shadows in her room began to move. They whispered her name, urging her to sleepwalk once more. Emma felt her body rise from the bed, no longer in control. The shadows guided her to the door, and she knew there was no escape. Emma stepped into the darkness, her fate unknown. The shadows closed in around her, and she was never seen again. The next morning, Emma's bed was empty. The only sign of her presence was the faint smell of decay and the dirt on the floor.